Leo Gerard is on the line with us. He is the international president of the United Steelworkers Union. USW.org is the website, and one of the most thoughtful and articulate spokespeople in the entire labor movement, in my opinion. President Gerard, welcome back to the program.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Tom.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit better, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that our feed into our phone system for some reason isn't the world's best. We got to fix this. Did you write this article, How to Make Money Off the U.S. Debt If Your Name is Simpson or Bowles?
Yeah.
Tell me about
this. That was a blog I did, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where the Simpson Bowles guys go out, Simpson and Bowles, they go out together and independently, and I think they charge $40,000 a pop for each speech they give.
Whoa! So they make $40,000 a pop to give a speech, but what they want to do is they want to see seniors eating cat food.
Yeah, it's the same deal, right? That we shouldn't do anything to the ultra rich and the super rich, but anybody who's got a pension or anybody who's getting some help to get through, whether they're disabled or not, we ought to punish them because they're not filthy rich. Yeah. I mean, and we saw that. I think it's been the most disgusting 24 hours in my adult lifetime in U.S. politics with Boehner and with the NRA today. And when you see that coming on the heels of the president going out of his way to try and get a deal.
Yeah, to the point that the president was even, that he PO'd his base. I mean, it's with this chain CPI thing.
I was pretty ticked when he did what he did. But, I've been in a lot of negotiations, and you don't always have as much control over it as you want. And here he was trying to give Boehner throw him a bone so that he could get it passed. And what we saw is that a Republican caucus that doesn't give a good darn about ordinary folks in America. And in fact, Boehner's bill, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't jump on it. He was cutting food stamps. He was cutting student grants. He was cutting everything that you could cut, while still letting those that make $1 million and more be the only ones that would have to pay a little extra.
And
you don't pay the extra on the first $1 million.
Yeah, and he was keeping
their second $1 million.
Yeah, and he was keeping their tax breaks intact. I mean, most people who make over $1 million don't actually make it as payroll tax because companies can't deduct from their corporate income taxes payroll over $1 million. So most CEOs' pays are capped at $1 million, and they make their second $1 million or their 20th $1 million by with stocks as dividends, as carried interest, and they pay a maximum 15% income tax.
Yeah.
So
it's a sad day. It really is.
Yeah. So what?
And if this thing, I mean, I've said for quite some time, it's not a cliff. It's at best a slope.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, the president was trying to do something balanced. He's trying to do what he campaigned on, and these guys just are so disconnected from reality that it's hard to believe. In fact, I said to a friend, I said, all they need now is to pass federally the ultrasound bill that they had in Virginia. They need to start to vote against clean energy. They need to be against manufacturing. They need to be for millionaires. And maybe that way in 2014 we can clean house and put people in there that care about the future, not just the future of the country, but the future of the people that make up the country.
Yeah. I think that slowly, the Thomas Frank's What's the Matter with Kansas? I mean, slowly but surely the Republicans across this country, people who vote Republican, who think of themselves as Republicans, are realizing that these guys in Congress who call themselves Republicans are not representing their interests. They're representing the interests of the Koch brothers and their billionaire buddies, period.
Yeah. I get up pretty early in the morning. I usually try to get in the office real early, get some work done, and often I turn on the television. I watch Morning Joe. I watch Morning Joe simply because I want to see what a right-winger thinks. Mm-hmm. And when I think back, the Joe Scarboroughs of the world were the extreme right-wingers in 1994, and now they're the moderates.
Yeah.
And, Joe is ranting and raving about how these extremists are destroying his party, and he's for gun control. He's for taking the assault weapons off. It shows you how far off the sort of off the beaten track these guys are. They're just disconnected from reality.
Barry Goldwater would not recognize this Republican Party. And speaking of Barry
Goldwater, wouldn't have qualified in the primary.
Right, and speaking of Barry Goldwater, I mean, he and Dwight Eisenhower and Everett Dirksen and I mean, many of Richard Nixon. I mean, most Republicans of my father's generation or mine when I was a teenager supported organized labor's right to organize. And I mean, they might not have always liked what labor did, but there was an understanding that it was a necessary balance to make capitalism work, to keep it from imploding.
What we've got is the most inequality since before the Great Depression, and I forget the numbers, but of sort of we're further in the inequality curve than a lot of the so-called developing countries are. Mm-hmm. The level of inequality between the rich and the rest of us, right. And if you look at the attempt to try to sustain a consumer-based society with no consumers. The consumers are loaded up with debt. We started off with, whether we liked it or not, where, the two in the family went to work so they could pay the bills, and we did that. And then we ended up getting kids that went to college and loaded up with college debt and had college debt equivalent to the first mortgage on a house that our generation bought, or worse. And now we end up with people that our credit cards were maxed out. The economy collapsed. They're starting to dig their way out of the hole. And we've got this line that says manufacturing coming back. God love it, manufacturing's coming back. But it's coming back at $13 and $14 an hour. Mm-hmm. $13 an hour is about $24,000 a year before taxes. You can't live in a metropolitan city with $24,000 a year before taxes.
Yeah. So what, historically we had, I think one of the things that was a pressure point in America was the organized labor movement, and arguably, the threat. I mean, in the 30s, it was the threat of communism versus fascism that caused, that helped both Republicans and Democrats kind of go down the middle, as it were. There doesn't seem to be that constraining force anymore. Does that mean that there's going to be a crash and labor is going to step back in, or I mean, what's your prognosis for the future, Leo Gerard?
One of the things I can speak for what we're doing. We're globalizing our union. We've made really, really strong strategic alliances with the major unions in Mexico, and Mexican Mining and Metal Workers Union, in Brazil with the C&M CUT, in Australia with the two largest Australian manufacturing unions, with the National Union of Mine Workers in South Africa, with the largest industrial union in the world, IG Metall in Germany. And we created a brand new transatlantic union called Workers Uniting, where we merged the largest private sector union in Great Britain with the United Steelworkers. Mm-hmm. And we're doing that because we've come to realize, whether it's in collective bargaining or whether it's organizing, if we've got global capital, we need to have the tools to deal with global capital in a global way. That doesn't mean we're going looking for strikes or anything else. It means we're going to try to get some leverage, some balance in the system. While in America, the one of the great democracies of the world, workers don't have the right, regardless of what the law says. Workers don't have the right to form a union. What you have is the right to try to form a union, and the boss has the right to do anything they want to prevent you. And should they violate the law, what they'll get is a slap on the wrist, told not to do it again, and the system will order a new attempt at a new election where the employer will do it again.
Yeah,
we need to fight that, because if we're going to have a society where people will be able to work with dignity, retire with dignity, raise their kids with dignity, we can't do it unless we have collective bargaining back in the system.
Completely agreed.